So what do you do when your family celebrates the Mawlid? So I've got personal experience with this. I have first-hand experience with this. Giving da'wah to your family is the hardest thing. There's nothing harder than giving da'wah to your family, especially when it comes to giving da'wah to your parents. I'll tell you guys a story, yeah? One of my family members, because most of my family were on this Sufi thing, yeah? They used to do this thing. So I had some family members who never used to pray. They never used to pray. But they would watch the Sufi channel on TV. And every time the adhan would come on, and they would say, Ashhadu anna Muhammad abduhu wa rasuluh, they would just... Adhan would finish and then they would not pray. For him, I've done this, I've obeyed the Prophet. And one time we were sitting there, and this was one of the elders in our family, and it happened, right? He kissed his thumb and he kissed his eye, and he saw me that I didn't do it, so he became angry. And he said, "Wallahi, you're going to do it." He didn't say Wallahi, but he's like, "You're going to do it." I was like, "It's a bid'ah." You know, at that time you could pause. Can you still pause? I don't like watch Sky and stuff. Can you still pause and rewind? Yeah. So you pause and rewind the adhan. He said, "You're going to do it, I'm going to punch you in the face." I was like, "You can punch me in the face. I'm not going to do bid'ah." He started screaming. It was crazy. I was in the wrong house at the time. And then I won't tell you if I did it or if I got punched. I'll leave that part of the story out. But the point is, it can get hectic. It can get emotional. You have to remember something as a default position, my brothers and sisters, that you will be a stranger if you follow the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. If you're not celebrating Mawlid, if you're not doing all other sorts of bid'ah, you will be a stranger in your house. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Bada Islam ghariban." Islam started as something strange, and it will return back to something strange as it began. You see, I live in an area where there's mostly like British people, and I rock my thobe like every day. Every day I walk up and down, I look at them, I smile at them, they see me. Sometimes little kids run away from me. Remember one time there was kids coming out of school, and this little girl saw me. She started crying. And her mum was like, "No, he's not going to hurt you." She started crying her eyes out. They made me feel like a real stranger, I'm not going to lie. But the Prophet said, فَطُوبَ لِلْغُرَبَى. Give glad tidings to these strangers. That's the first thing you have to understand, is that you might be strange to your parents, but you're not strange to Allah. To Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're very well known. To Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're very well acquainted. You're known in a gathering amongst Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's angels, inshallah ta'ala. You know, the strangeness gets so bad in your house that it can even reach between a husband and wife. I give an example. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, the great Khalifa, as we know, the first Mujaddid, inshallah, of this ummah. When he became Khalifa, he went to his wife and he said, "Listen, we can get a divorce now, because I can't give you no rights. Like, I love you, you're my wife, I care for you, but I'm Khalifa now. So I have to give all my time, all my money, all my efforts. I have to give everything to this amana that's been placed over me, this trust. I can't play around with it. So if you want to leave me, you can leave me, because I can't fulfill your rights anymore." So she looked at him and she said, "I want to stay with you, and you don't have to give me my rights." Knowing that she would not have him as a husband anymore, knowing that she would now live in abject poverty. He was the leader of the Muslims, but he would live in abject poverty. That's the way he was. Rahimahullah. That's the way he was. The situation, and remember, she was a daughter of the previous Khalifa. She was a daughter, her name was Fatima, was daughter of a previous Khalifa. One day, she was inside the house making dua to Allah, saying, "Oh Allah, rid us of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. because the poverty and the pain she was going through was getting so bad. She wasn't a bad woman, she was a very righteous woman. But to show you how strange Umar ibn Abdul Aziz became, he became strange in his own marriage, his own relationship. So don't find loneliness when you're in this house and everyone's pulling up the flags and the lights and the candles and the cakes and, you know, Allah. Don't find strangeness in that. Rather, find glad tidings in the fact that you will, inshallah ta'ala, be from those who are from those 50 siddiqah, the reward of 50 siddiqah, inshallah ta'ala. You will have that as the Prophet promised. 50 truthful ones from amongst the Sahaba, that's the reward you have, inshallah. And remember, the same way you might be oppressed and you might be mocked and you might be violated, the Prophet was oppressed and the Prophet was mocked and the Prophet was violated. Hatta Imam Ahmad, for standing up for the Sunnah, he was put into prison. He was lashed and whipped so much that when he was finally removed from prison and he lifted his shirt, the doctor who came and examined his back, they said if a camel was beaten, if an animal was beaten at this man, the animal would have died. No, sorry, I'm confusing that statement. They used to say Ibn Taymiyyah would whip someone who was possessed by a jinn so much that if he had whipped the camel would have died. Imam Ahmad was that when he lifted his back and his back was being examined by the doctor, when he was examining the scars, bits of the leather had actually embedded themselves in his back in the wound and he'd have to pick it out with a knife. Why? Just because he was protecting and standing up for the Sunnah. But brothers and sisters, pay attention. Standing up for the Sunnah necessitates that you do it with hikmah, with wisdom. You can't just run up in the house and just blaze everyone. Bidah. You can't do that. It's right, you're not wrong, you're upon haqq. But you have to understand that you have to package the message in the correct way. And I would advise you to do it in the following 3 ways, inshallah ta'ala. This is the advice of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah. He said 3 characteristics that are unique to Ahlul Sunnah is, number 1 is that there's knowledge. That you give your da'wah based upon knowledge. Like you sit down and you say, Mom, Dad, Ibn Kathir, Ibn Tafsir Ibn Kathir, you probably have it in your house. They probably know. Even the Sufis love Ibn Kathir. He said, okay, in his book he explained it was the Shia. And it was the Shia that was so extreme that even the Shia today who are kuffar will tell you they're kuffar. And you bring the references, and that's knowledge. They were the ones who started the Mawlid. They're like, okay. Yeah, you understand? Knowledge is what's going to get you far. Number 2, justice. Don't be unjust. The people of innovation will mock you, ridicule you, be rude to you, disrespect you, take your rights, and go all about the roundabout when they want to make a point. They won't be just. You be just. And one of the most unjust things is to raise your voice to your parents, to disrespect them, to be rude to them when you're giving da'wah to them, to be rude to your siblings, to be rude to your brothers, your sisters. You'll be soft-spoken to a person outside in the streets, but you struggle to be kind, to give da'wah to your own family. And the last and final thing that Ibn Taymiyyah said is rahmah, mercy. So your da'wah and your refutation should be based on these things: knowledge, not ignorance, not he say, she say, no, knowledge. Quran, Sunnah, bifahmi salaf al-ummah. Mercy and justice. And when you're doing that, be patient. It's to learn how to give da'wah is a very, we can talk about it from many different angles, but this hopefully is just an overview, inshallah. What I will say to you is this, is that if you do have family members who are upon innovation or who are upon shirk, we've got certain people here whose family members, they call out to Sahaba, who make dua to Ali or other things or whatever have you. Some of you might have family members who don't pray, okay? Imam Tirmidhi narrated from Abdullah ibn Shaqiq that the Sahaba didn't see any act of worship leaving it to be kufr except for leaving the prayer. We've got families who don't pray and we don't do anything. We've got sisters who don't cover. We've got brothers who don't grow beards, trials above the ankle, don't worship Allah. We've got boyfriends, girlfriends, music, all these problems. I just say to you what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nar. Save yourselves and your family from the hellfire. We always want to, it's a reminder to myself first and foremost, we always want to set up da'wah projects, do da'wah, but we don't want to give da'wah to the family. Giving da'wah to the family is like boring. But this is something that's important and we need to take seriously. Because at the end of the day, if we don't do our best to help them, and of course tawfiq is with Allah, this is hellfire for the one who dies on that path without having repented. Allahu a'lam.